Hello there survivors and welcome back to another build tutorial in ARK Survival Ascended. Today I will be building this detailed Viking house, which is of course perfect for your adventures on Ragnarok, although you can build this pretty much anywhere as it uses pillars for the foundation, so it's easy to adjust to any landscape. In some of these images you will see me using some skins. Those are the new Viking Builders cosmetics, which is definitely a really cool skin if you're planning to do more Viking builds, as it has not only great textures for your structures, but also a crazy amount of additional decoration options to really live out that Viking fantasy. If you want to see more about that, I've made a full tour showcasing a lot of those skins already up on the channel. But for this build, it can definitely also be done without using those skins. But those, of course, will just spice up the build to another layer, although you could definitely get away without any mods or any skins needed, just using the vanilla structures. As always, if you enjoy seeing these build tutorials and you want to see more, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and feel free to leave suggestions for future builds down in the comments below. Okay, for this build, we're not starting with the foundations. Instead, we use pillars. So you want to raise them up not too high, just a little bit above the ground is fine. And then we want to add 2 ceilings before we add the next one. And in total, we want to go 6 wide here. So after every 2, we want to add in a pillar. And this is how far we want to go. Then we also want to make sure that we make this entire platform 2 wide. So we'll add in the pillars at the end wherever we needed. And for the extra supports, what you could do is add them every 2, just so that you know that if one of them gets broken somehow or picked up, you will have plenty of different support points that your base doesn't come crumbling down. So we have 2 ceilings right here. We want to go and extend this part on the side here until we have 16 in total. Every time after 2 ceilings, we want to add in a pillar, and we want to keep that going all the way. So yeah, we just keep going until we have 16 in total to get a whole platform built up. And then here in the front, we want to make this 12 wide. So we will continue it here on the front as well. Keep going out like this until we have 12. So basically 6 different sections of 2. All the way across like that. Then we can start making this all 2 wide again. As I said before, you don't technically need that many pillars on the inside, but yeah, I always prefer to rather be safe than sorry. Also, they line up nicely, so I would also just keep going with this every other 2 pattern for the rest of the build like that. And then here on this side, we want to continue this. Also the same pattern, every other 2. We're going to add in a pillar. And this side, which is now 6 long, we want to make 14 long in total. So we'll keep this going for a little bit. Bringing it all the way back. Basically bringing it almost as far as the other one. Just the last 2 are going to be missing out. And then, of course, we can also fill in this to be 2 wide again, and we can add in extra supportive pillars to make sure that this is all properly supported. Then over here, what we can do is continue this pattern, and then the pillar after 2, and then continue filling it in all the way across like that, adding in these extra pillars as well. And now we can basically fill in this entire platform. I would still probably just continue the same pattern with these pillars, so every other 2. Again, just to make sure that if you accidentally pick up a pillar, nothing is really going to happen to the foundation support of your build. It's always better to be safe. And yeah, adding these extra pillars in, it's not going to be that expensive, but it is a little bit safer just in case something happens to 1 or 2 of them. So yeah, we'll just keep going around, adding in these layers, adding in these pillars, and then the final row of ceilings to complete this platform. And this is the platform that we will be building the entire base upon. So here on the front of the building, which is the nice section that is 12 long, we want to keep 4 ceilings normal like this. And then after that, we're going to add in our stairs right over here. So that is one of the entrances to the main platform. Then all the way on the other side at the back, here at the corner, we also want to add in 4 of these stairs as a way to get on and off the platform. And then here on this side, we want to go in by 1 and 2 sections. And then here in the middle, around this pillar, is where we want to add 2 more stairs for another side entrance. Then we can take out our half pillars and actually add them here on top of all of these pillars that are visible on the outside to create some more supports. And then you can kind of choose whether or not you want to have like railings around most of the platform. I didn't do it for my build because it's not going to be a very high platform depending on how high you place your pillars. And yeah, I kind of didn't think that look was necessary. Of course, you can do it in some spots, especially if you end up using the Viking skins. Because for these Viking skins, you can actually layer up 2 railings on top of each other. Have the first one be a normal texture, and the second one you can change to a variant with this netting, and then it's quite nice. So I would add it only as like details, but you can see in most places I didn't add any railings at all. Then the next step is going from this corner here on the front at the right side. We go in by 1, so the next pillar over here. And then we can go in by 1 like that. And we can have 6 of these going all the way across to this side. So basically starting our building. Then we want to change to the full pillars. Go in by 1 more. So now it's lining up with that pillar at the start. And we want to also go along the entire side here of the building. Then we can take out our wooden walls. Fill in the gaps in between to create the first side wall of the building here on the edge. This is basically going to be the end of our roof. Then here on the front, first of all, we want to go from that pillar, leave a gap of 2, add in 2 pillars. Then we want to leave a gap of 3, add in 3.5 pillars right over there. Then we want to leave another gap of 2 with 3 pillars, and then a gap of 1 with 2 pillars right there to get the foundations for the front wall in place here. We want to start here on the right side. We want to take out some windows, add 2 of them right here, add some quarter walls, the shallow slope walls going up like that. And of course, we can add the actual windows inside of these just for some extra added details because it adds a little bit more depth in there, right? Then here in the middle of this wall section, we want to take out our thin pillars, add them right in the middle, and some half pillars on top of that. If you're going to use skins, this is a good moment to skin it because now you can easily reach it. Sometimes it's hard to reach thin pillars if you have walls around them, so definitely do that now. We want to then take out our roofs, go all the way to your quarter roofs, find the right snap point, add 2 of them right over there. Then we want to once again go to our thin pillars and add them on the corners to create a little bit more of a special entrance for this section. Then we want to take out the walls again, start filling out this wall just like this. At the doorway right there in the middle, of course, as well as adding in the actual door to create the entrance. We will have some quarter walls here, and then our shallow slope walls will continue to go up in this section of the wall. Then we can take out all windows again. We can have 2 windows here at the bottom and 2 windows right over here, and in the middle we can just fill in the wall as well as right over there to that side. So now what we want to do is take more quarter walls, fill in 2 of them right there, have 1 more shallow slope wall to go up there, then take out the normal slope walls, 1 over here and 1 over there. So that is where the tipping point of our roof is going to be, and makes for a very nice and original house shape. We then of course want to take out our wooden windows. We can add them in here. We don't really need them here if you're going to skin it with the Viking skins, but otherwise definitely also add them in. And then, yeah, of course, it's best when you open these, because then you still have windows, but you also have that little 3D effect over here. Speaking of these, we're going to add some more details here. We want to have our thin half beams to stick out like this. Then we want to take out the thin pillars, bring them back down like that. And these snap points we're going to use. We're going to take out our quarter ramps made out of thatch, or skinned to the thatch skins later on. And then we're going to add this little roof above the windows for some extra details here on the front, making it quite nice and detailed all the way through. We want to then take out our beam and go all the way across from that side to the other to add in some extra supports here. All right, then it's time to go around the corner again. We can take out our pillars, add 2 of them right here after a gap of 2, another gap of 2, and add 2 more there. Then we'll have a gap of 1 right here. We can then have a gap of 4 here on the front, raise these pillars, and then once again have 1 here and a gap of 2 over on that side as well. We want to take out our full walls and kind of continue here along the top. We want to fill in the side here, and we'll fill in that side, and as well fill in the top over here. Then for these sections, you want to have all little quarter walls at the bottom of each of those. And of course, if you're using wood, and especially if you're not skinning it, you want to then go to the alternative variant for the second layer there, so that the skins will still fit together. And then here in the middle is where we want to add in some actual windows. We then also want to take out a thin pillar. We want to add 1 right here, so in the middle of these 2 pillars, and another 1 right there on this side. We're going to add a few of them just like that. It's going to support part of the roof as well on that side. Then we take out a thin half pillars and add that on top of each of these ones, because they need to be slightly taller all the way across the board. Then it's time for this entrance here. We want to start with having some windows along the side. We want to have some quarter walls along the bottom. The alternative variant here over there on the second layer. And then we want to have a doorway right in the middle, of course. Then we can take out our walls, fill in this all the way through just like that. Then we'll take out 2 more windows right there in the middle. And we can take out our slope walls and create this full shape over here at the top. We want to have a beam going across, and then some pillars going up over there to create the entrance in this side. And we want to then take out our door, and of course add 1 in. If you're not going to skin this, you want to probably add in the windows as well. But if you're going to skin it to the Viking skins, we actually don't need to add any windows to all of these on this side of the building. Then it's time to fill in this wall. Here we want to leave a gap of 1. We can raise up the pillars by 3. Then we want to leave a gap of 3. We can again raise up those pillars. Then we have a gap of 2, and the pillars being too high as well. We want to add our windows back down here. We want to then of course have our quarter walls on top of it, as well as our shallow slope walls, creating the start of the shape, very similar to what we did on the other side. And actually here, of course, we do want to add in our windows just like that to add a little bit more detail and depth to this part of the place. Then over here we can fill in full wooden walls. We just want to make sure we fill in this section entirely, have some quarter walls, and have the sloped walls, the shallow slope walls, continue all that way. Now we want to make some slight changes here. Now if we pick up one of these ceilings, actually these ones as well, we can kind of change the layout a little bit. We have some quarter ceilings right over there, and then we can fit in our full ceilings in the middle again, because now we can actually snap our gateway to those newly placed ceilings right in the middle of these pillars. And then of course also adding in the gate so that we have a nice new entrance where you could take some of your tames inside for the safety of your own home. And then of course along the side of this we want to fill in our quarter walls. Same thing here on this side of the entrance, just so that we can actually utilize this. Then over here, of course, we want to fill in the full walls. Take out the full slope wall over here. Another slope wall over there. And then we can continue the shape. Some quarter walls, a shallow slope wall, and another shallow sloped wall. And that is going to fill in the shape of this build. We then, of course, want to add in our beam over here and our beam just over there. Okay, so we have actually the majority of the outside complete. Of course, we're just missing the major thing, which is the roof and the additional layers on top of there. But before we get there, we need to get some other things in place. First of all, we want to place a little ceiling here in this corner. So that is on the front of the building here, right away in this corner. And we want to also add in some quarter ceilings right next to that. We then want to take out our quarter stairs, have them go down just like this so that we can actually reach that little platform. And then we can go back up with 2 as well, just over here. And that means we can have a layer of quarter ceiling going all the way across on that point where we meet the staircase. So all the way across from one side to the other. We can then also, of course, add in our ceilings for this entire layer. And of course, actually, we can end it right here when it meets up with these pillars, because farther than that, it's going to stick out of our building. But this is going to help you infrastructure-wise to easily reach the rest of the layers, of course. We also want to make this look a little bit nicer. So what we will do is take out a thin pillar, add it right here. Of course, adding another thin pillar there as well. One over here, one over there, and 2 over here. Now, to get railings around these, it's actually quite tricky. The easiest thing that I've found is temporarily placing some full pillars at the end of some of these stairs, because for some reason we can snap our pillars or railings to those full pillars so that we can still get railings in the right spots, and then afterwards we can easily delete them, of course, adding the railings around there as well. And then the last one is right over here, going through the snap points until we get the right one. So we can get a nice and cozy little staircase going over there so that you can easily reach those places still. And then, of course, over here we can take our railings all the way across to the other side. Here you might want to add with a half railing because of the slope of the roof that is going to be there. Same thing over here. Probably wouldn't fill anything in there. You're not really going to fit through that gap. Then on top of here we can actually expand these ceilings. Just leave out the last 2 of them and then we can start filling this in. So this lines up perfectly here with this corner of the building, and we should be able to fill that all in all the way through to get this layer built up. And before we start the other layers of the building that are still going to be added on top, we're going to start on a little bit of the roof first to make everything a little bit more clear. So we want to start over here and we want to add in 3 of these roof pieces all the way up over here. And then here on the other side, we want to make sure that we fill in these, just 1 over here. And then for the other 2, we can bring them all the way down already, just kind of following along the entire structure, of course, all the way to these little half pillars on the side. And we can actually bring back up these, just leaving this one open, going to the quarter pieces here, add 2 of them along the bottom, and then 2 standing up along the top here, which is basically going to create a little opening, some half pillars here, thin half pillars to create that, which is kind of just an extra little window. Let's in a little bit of light, and it's supposed to emulate the escape for the smoke in the little kitchen part that we'll build. And here along the front, we can take out our ramps as well and just kind of go along this entirety of it. And to add even more to it, we can then take out our quarter ramps and basically add another little layer to really make this stick out and overhang here on the outside. Just, you know, making this stand apart from this section. Speaking of that section, we can take out our full roofs, add 2 more over here. Then, of course, adding in a corner piece so that we can also add the roof over on this side. We can fill this in completely like that. Same thing over here. Bring that back down. And then, of course, another corner here to fill in these roof pieces as well. Bring this up, and there should be 4 roof pieces all the way going back over there. Then we can, of course, take out the ramps for this little section, and in these, take out the quarter pieces and add them here alongside the edge like that. We actually need to make a small change. I accidentally had these full roofs here on the front of this part. For this part, we're not going to do full roofs. We're instead taking out some quarter roof pieces to make a little bit of a smaller overhang here. And then here at the end, we can actually add in some ramp pieces. Just 2 of them right over here, because of course we don't have like a quarter corner piece, but we can add a little bit of a curve to that roof piece as well, making that fit in quite nicely. Then we can take out sloped walls. We can add 2 of them right here, 1 of them right over there, and then another one right there too. And then, of course, the shallow slope wall on the other side here, so that we can kind of start this part of the building, which is actually going to be a new addition. So we can have a pillar right there and a pillar right there. The middle here, we can just fill in with more wall pieces. And now that we have that in place, we should be able to raise up these with another pillar, have a beam going across this bottom section, which we can actually bring out to make 2 wide. So we'll do that for this entire thing, and we can go around it with this beam. So then we can fill in our pillars on those corners and have a little half pillar underneath that. So that is going to be the new addition for that part of the build. Then we can take our walls, we can fill them out right over here. Same thing on the other side, just like that. And then have our windows right in the middle of those sections, so we can enjoy the views around us a little bit. And then we can take out our quarter walls, add them along the bottom sides there, the alternative version right above them, just like this. And we can add a window in the middle for this one, and another window in the middle for that section. And then also adding in our slope walls right on top to make a nice roof shape here. Then we can take out our roofs, fill in the majority of this just very normally like that. And then, of course, we're going to go and add details, have some quarter roofs along the outside to create that overhang. It's so much easier now that we have these extra pieces. And then we can have our quarter ramps along the outside here all the way through, creating a little bit of that curved effect again. And we'll do the same thing here over on this side, adding that in all the way through as well, creating a nice shape around the build. We then want to take out our half railings. We can add some of those around there just as extra supports, basically a little bit of extra detail going on that we can add now that we have a little bit of the roof complete over there. And if you want to, you can also do that over here, add a little bit of detail. Then we shouldn't forget about the beams. We want to add a beam going across the top like this, and we then also want to do that up here. So adding in a beam all the way across the top of the roof. Of course, that's going to happen here, and that's going to happen on the other side as well. So we want to have those all in place already. So then this side of the building is actually already starting to look quite complete, but of course there's much more to do because we're still missing a major part of the roof. First of all, we can also add some extra details here by adding in some extra railings as kind of support beams coming from the roof, keeping it up. So yeah, basically want to just snap these in those positions. And we can even take that a little bit further by adding in a little half thin pillar over there. Then we can go to the thin beams and create a beam going across like this, as well as going across to the other side just like that. Basically adding a little bit of extra support in there. Over on this side of the roof, however, we want to make the biggest changes. First of all, the first 3 layers here along the bottom of the roof is what we're going to go and fill in completely from one side all the way to the other. It should line up with those ceilings that we've placed so far. And we want to just take this all the way across to the other side like this. Okay, and then if we start from this current corner, we could go and buy 2 more. And this is where the building is going to start. So right over there, and then 1, 2, 3, and 4 is how wide this section is going to be. So we can actually start with these walls in the corners. Then we can have a door opening right there. And then a little window right next to it. Above this, we want to add in some quarter walls just like this. And then our shallow slope walls will nice form of the roof. Then, of course, we want to add in the actual door right over here. And we actually want to make a tiny balcony. So we can add in a little bit like this, just so that you could enjoy your views out here. And yeah, we can add a little bit of a railing to make it a little bit safer, of course. And that kind of forms this part of the roof so that we can actually go and start filling this all the way in. First of all, we will take out our ramps and of course bring them a bit closer up to the building, just like that. We can actually use our corner piece over here that should be able to then connect this part over to the top of this addition that we're building, you know, making it neatly line up so we can have this layer filled in like normal. Just 2 over here, and then of course this is also going to receive that corner of ramps, and then we can bring this out. Should all line up with that part of the roof that we have in place. We can continue this and meet up with the already placed roof over there. So we'll just have to fill in these side walls, but of course we're not going to leave it like this. We're going to have a little layer of quarter ramps along the front, as well as a little bit here along the side until it overlaps. If you do have overlapping, of course, you can also add in the final one so that you can complete that whole look. But we want to do the same thing over here. Add those in and add those along the side just like this, so that we have that part complete and looking a lot nicer too. We can of course have our beam going across that part as a nice little detail for the top of the roof. And then over here, we actually want to take out our quarter walls, and we should be able to fill in this section now all the way up to here. And then of course, shallow slope walls to fill in these gaps all the way around, so that now everything should be filled up to connect that middle part on the top. And we have some nice details on this side, nice details on top, and of course, nice details over here on the opposite side. But we still have to do a little bit of work on the inside of the building, because of course we have a lot of room here, not very nicely interior design, and as well we have more space up here which definitely needs some other work as well. So then we're going to continue work here on the inside. We want to find this quarter ceiling and add in a pillar, so that's going to end up in the middle of those ceilings. We're going to leave a gap of 4 quarter ceilings before we add another pillar, and then another gap of 4 before we do another one. Then we want to have a shallow slope wall right over here. We want to have another one right next to it to create a little bit of a curve there, and we can then fill this entire wall in just like that to make a nice division and create some separate rooms in here. We want to have some quarter walls up there and slope walls, shallow slope walls to follow that shape. So basically you could create a little bit of a room here, maybe a little bit of a kitchen here, and you have the rest divided. So we can then follow the whole way through. Now over here, before we fill anything in, kind of what we want to do is we want to have some quarter walls and of course the alternative versions before we can have a full wall right next to it, and then pillars again. We can then have a gap of 1, fill that in with normal walls. Then we can have some more of these sloped walls to create a nice little curve. another pillar and another pillar there as well. So we can then fill in some more of these walls, creating basically separate rooms around. So we have this little hallway and entranceway. We get a bigger room over here, but we're also still going to make some additional adjustments over here. So we want to leave gaps of 2 before we add in these pillars. So that one we'll leave open. This one we'll fill in with walls. This one over here as well. And we can kind of just follow along in filling these sections in. And then of course over here we want to add in some of the shallow pieces. So to make a nice little bit of a curve, you have this room, which is a really nice storage / crafting room to utilize for your designs. But of course, we can continue further upwards. We can follow the entire staircase up here. And we have this room that we still need to fix, but as well, of course, the room above us. To start with the room above us, we're going to take out our quarter ceilings. We want to kind of add them here alongside this ledge, just like that. Add one more over there, and this is the connecting point. We're gonna take out some quarter stairs, bring them down from that quarter ceiling all the way down over here, so it should connect to up here. Once again, of course, we can have some temporary full pillars along the side so that we can in fact add our railings by snapping through them and cycling through the snap points to add in the railings. Now, before you remove the temporary pillars, you want to make sure that we add the half pillars here to the end so that they will stay. Then we can change these out and add some half pillars there as well. Then all the way up here, now that we've added in these floors, we want to make this a little bit nicer. We actually also want to make sure that this is all connected in the right way. So I'm going to have to replace those pillars, but we want to make sure that all the ceilings are facing the same way, and we can fill in this entire floor. This is basically going to be just an additional floor that you could use maybe as like a bedroom or whatever. So we want to make this a little bit nicer, of course. Add our railings around the staircase entrance. We might use some half railings to make it fit a little bit more. But yeah, now we have access to this room. This room is pretty much complete, and then we can start focusing on what is going to be over here. First of all, we want to take out a pillar. We want to add one right over there and one right over here as well. Then this one is going to be very simple. That's just going to be a wall. This, of course, is going to have to be a sloped wall to fill in that section, basically. And then, of course, we can start filling in these as well. And we can have a little doorway as an entrance. Slope wall over here to fill this in. So basically, you have this little corridor here in the hallway before you enter this, which will be the main bedroom. Then over here on this side, we want to find these pillars and actually make sure that we connect them and continue them. And we can actually have a beam going across from one side to the other. Here on the other side, we can actually also add in that beam along the edge here of the walkway that we've created, and even a little half beam right over on that side. Now we need to still fill in this wall, of course, and we want to make sure that we match the rest of the wall. So in this case, it's going to be slightly flipped around to make it all fit. Although what you could, of course, do, what you probably want to do, is make sure that these walls are actually flipped around the other way, and maybe flip around the ones at the bottom as well, because this one, of course, is going to show up on the outside. Then we want to have these quarter walls in here, slope walls in there, basically to fill in the rest of the shape. So we have your little bedroom or whatever room you want to use this for completed too. And yeah, you've got quite a decent amount of space in here. If you want to make this a little bit cleaner, because there's a lot of these awkward spaces, what I sometimes like to do as well is add in an additional pillar here and there, and we can actually just add in some fake walls. Of course, you could do the secret doorway, so you could still access them maybe from some hidden storage. But this just kind of cleans this up and makes this the perfect spot to place down a bed. But yeah, there we go. That is how you do that part. We should now have a pretty nice interior as well, kind of dividing this up in different sections, which is a little bit more usable than one big space. And then of course here on the outside we can do a few of those additional details that we also added on the other side. So we'll add our railings in these parts as kind of support beams, and we also probably want to mirror the one we have on the other side. So we want to add an additional one over here, then we want to have a little thin pillar, then our beams going across like this for a nice extra support beam going out on the front. So we have all a lovely little detail here. This platform you can be using for like an industrial forge or something, and we should have everything in place. Of course, adding some fireplaces will be nice additional details too. And if you're using the Viking cosmetics, you can really spruce up this build even further. There's a few more details that you could add inside to make it look a little bit nicer even, and that is basically adding some extra railings in. We want to go from these pillars and basically bring them up like this and then back across to the other side. Basically supposed to be support beams, and yeah, just add a little bit of an extra detailed look. So at least over here you would want to do that. The rest of this layer probably nowhere. Around here what you could do is add some around here to get some extra detail in, which is always nice. And with that, you just get that little bit of extra details. It's not much, but I always like doing that whenever I can. Where you would definitely also want to do it is around the outside over here. So here I would definitely add in some supporting beams coming from those pillars across the bottom like that, just to really make sure that that looks like a proper support. And that is kind of all we need to do. So if we then take a look at my version, this is changed to all of the Viking structures using the wooden structures, painting the roof. I believe this is baby blue, but I could be mistaken. I tried a few different colors, and we have of course plenty of trophy skins to take some flags and the nice details there. We have these bones as entryways. We have a lot of the cool little decoration pieces. We have the forge out here, kind of just transforming the look and adding a lot of details in. You can see the fireplaces as well, bringing some extra life to the place, especially this side here. I really like with the additional statues, as well as these banner flags, as well as this one from the Summer Bash, of course, which is a nice detail to add for sure. This is also from the Summer Bash, these nice megalodon teeth. And yeah, adds a lot of extra life to the build. So let's do a quick tour around this place. So yeah, it should be a pretty nice base to use. You of course have an easy platform, and it's built on pillars, so that means that pretty much anywhere you can get this one going, because yeah, you can just adjust the pillars to the landscape. You have plenty of ways to easily get up to it. You can walk around the entire platform, of course. We have the industrial forge here, which looks quite cool. And then, of course, we have the dino gate here, which actually means that you can bring in some decent tames as well. So all of your gatherers early on, you can easily bring inside, unload, make a little storage room over here with your crafting stations all the way around. We have some more crafting going on in this corridor over here. Library for your blueprints, a little kitchen area at this side. And then, of course, we've got the staircase to lead us up to the next layer, which will bring us into this bedroom over here with some additional details looking very, very nice. And yeah, we have some extra drakelings for company. Fireplace, definitely a nice one. We have your balcony over here, just a lovely little house to call home. And you even have an extra room, so there's actually a decent amount of space in this build. An extra cozy bedroom all the way at the top, so no matter what you need from your build, it might not look too big and it isn't crazy big, of course, but yeah, there's definitely a decent amount of space in this build to be utilized and to be utilized as a survival base if you would want to. And I really like the way this one came together. Hopefully you enjoyed this build tutorial as well. If you did, of course, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I hope to see you again in the next video stream. For now, goodbye.